Story 1. Backstory. This is another story involving Sam and Murad. Sam, my manager, is incredibly laid back and an exceptional leader. However, his manager, Murad, is quite the stickler for rules. I work as an infrastructure and configuration manager and happen to be one of the more expensive resources on the project from my domain. This story takes place in January 2023, during a time when the company was undergoing some restructuring. Most of our contracts included a last in, first out clause by default. When I joined in March 2022, I took a 10% pay cut to remove this clause from my contract because I was seeking job stability. Although I was still earning more than I did in my previous job, it was only 20% more instead of the expected 30%. Story. As the infrastructure manager, I am responsible for maintaining all the product licenses the project uses. One of these product licenses requires a digital signature to function. Typically, such tasks require the use of service accounts, which are owned by users. When someone leaves the organization, their service accounts are automatically transferred to their manager. Unfortunately, service accounts cannot have digital signatures, so I had to use my own in this case. The product activation process involves using the corresponding digital signature certificate. Since I already had a digital signature certificate for tax purposes, I decided to reuse it instead of obtaining a separate one. In India, digital signature certificates are encrypted and require a one-time password for my mobile number every time they are used. This mobile number must be associated with my national ID Aadhaar, as that's how most encryption services work in India. Sam was on vacation, his first in 5 years. Apart from taking a one-day leave in 2018 when he moved from India to Europe, he had never even taken a sick day. He recently got married, and for his honeymoon, he took a 2-month vacation to travel all over Europe with his new wife. In his absence, Murad was overseeing the project. Management asked Murad to cut 15% of his workforce. If you've read my previous posts, you would know that Murad was not pleased with me. So, the inevitable happened. I was called into a meeting with Murad and Human Resources. Murad asked me to voluntarily resign, or else I would be let go. This is a tactic companies in India often use, as getting fired is considered a much bigger deal than simply losing a job. It's a cultural thing. I suppose being fired carries a stigma that most people want to avoid. Human Resources usually tries to persuade people to resign voluntarily so that it doesn't become public knowledge that they were fired. This tactic often works well, as resigning saves the company from having to pay 3 months' salary, which they would owe if they were to lay off an employee. However, I knew better, so I refused his request. Murad was quite taken aback by this. Since I had called his bluff, he had to double down to show he meant business. By the end of the day, I received my termination email, with instructions on how to return the company property I had. Here's the twist. I replied to the email, asking to schedule the return of the laptop promptly, as I needed to leave the city for a few days, which was a fabricated excuse. My objective was to have them pick up my laptop from my place and format it as soon as possible. This detail will be important later. By the end of the week, my laptop was picked up. I had already backed up a copy of my digital signature certificate, so there were no issues on my end. Fast forward to mid-February, and there was an issue with a product. A support ticket was raised, and the support team wanted to upgrade to the next version, as this was a known bug that had been resolved in the next version. The product was used once a week to create a weekly report, but no one really looked at it except for Sam, who was still on vacation. So, its absence wasn't likely to be noticed for at least a full month. The end-of-the-month report would bring it to upper management's attention. Now, standard operating procedure requires a license check. Hence, it required decryption of the existing license. To cut a long story short, I received a call asking for the digital signature certificate and one-time password, which I rejected. Eventually, Murad was informed, and he asked the support team to provide a new license. The product support team informed him that they couldn't provide a new license without the company purchasing one. The license cost for this product was $200,000. At this point, Murad decided that they could live without the report. He mostly handled the team side of the project, so he wasn't fully aware of the impact of this report. Sam returned from vacation at the end of February. By the first week of March, he noticed the missing weekly report and promptly called me. I informed him that Murad had fired me. Sam was quite perplexed, to say the least. Unlike Murad, he knew that the current license needed my digital signature certificate to work, so he asked if my digital signature certificate was available. I told him that my laptop had a copy, but it was taken. He checked the system, and sure enough, the laptop had been formatted. He asked me if there was any way to resolve the issue. I informed him that even if there were a way, I couldn't help him without being an employee. He asked me to wait for a few days. There is a quarterly meeting that takes place in the middle of every third month, attended by the chief executive officer and the top management. At the March meeting, everyone noticed the missing report. The chief executive officer asked why this important project was missing the report. Sam informed him there were about 90 people on the call, that a key person had been let go, and the report couldn't be prepared without spending $200,000 on a new license. Now, I heard the recording of this call after rejoining, so I'll share the relevant conversation below. Chief Executive Officer: is this related to the layoff? Sam: yes. Chief Executive Officer: why wasn't this person's work backed up? Why was he on the last in, first out list if he was so key? Sam: he wasn't on the last in, first out list. Murad jumps in: he joined less than a year ago. He must be on that list. Chief Executive Officer: let's discuss this offline after the call. I don't know what transpired in the offline meeting, but 2 days later, I received a call from the head of Human Resources offering me my job back. I asked for the following: a 100% raise and promotion to the next level. Removal from the last in, first out list, obviously. Permanent work from home arrangement mentioned in the contract. I keep the termination payout. Since it will be counted as a new job in my profile, a joining bonus 20% of annual salary. I rejoined during the third week of March. I received a brand new laptop within 30 minutes of rejoining, hand-delivered to my home by someone from the information technology department in my city. It took me 10 minutes to decrypt the license using my backed-up digital signature certificate and 30 minutes to upgrade the product to the next version. By the end of lunch, the chief executive officer had the report in hand. My new promoted role offers a 60% increase in my medical insurance coverage, a company car for personal use, the option to purchase company stock, and many other upgrades. I personally thanked Murad during my first week for the promotion and recognition by the chief executive officer in a team-wide call, the same 90 people, minus the top brass and the chief executive officer. Story 2. So, a little background on me. I'm a teacher at a private kindergarten. But before you start picturing finger painting and nap time, let me clarify. This isn't a daycare where kids are just killing time until their parents pick them up. We're talking about an actual school where we teach math, reading, manners, writing, and other essential skills, albeit simplified for 5-year-olds. We have a structured schedule that's posted weekly, and the kids even have to pass a test to get in. It's a prestigious program, located in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in our city, so most of our students come from incredibly affluent families. Now, let me tell you about one particular family that has been driving me up the wall. I've dealt with plenty of wealthy parents before, but these people take the cake in terms of entitlement. Their child, let's call her Lily, struts into class every day like she owns the place. She's 5, so it's cute at first. But then it becomes clear that this isn't just a confidence thing, it's been ingrained in her by her parents that she's somehow above everyone else. When she arrives, which is almost always just before lunchtime, the entire class stops what they're doing to greet her. They all get up to go hug her, completely derailing whatever lesson I was in the middle of teaching. It's disruptive, but I tolerate it because, well, she's 5. What else can you expect? But here's where the real problem starts. Her parents. They bring her late almost every single day, and they refuse to give us a heads up. They won't answer the phone when we call, and if by some miracle we do get through to them, they lie. For instance, there was this one time when my co-teacher called Lily's mom to ask if she'd be coming to school the next day because we had a big activity planned. The mom said they had some document issues that day but promised Lily would be there for the activity. The next day rolls around, and guess who doesn't show up? And of course, no call, no explanation. If that were the only issue, maybe I could let it slide. But Lily isn't just late, she's struggling academically. And it's not surprising given her attendance record. Halfway through the school year, and this child doesn't know the alphabet, can't do basic math, and can barely count to 10. Meanwhile, the rest of the class is reading and doing basic addition. But does her mom acknowledge this? Nope. She complains that the homework is too hard, as if they ever actually do it. Every day it's the same routine. Lily shows up, disrupts the class, and then falls further behind her peers. I'm at my wit's end trying to help this kid when it's clear her parents couldn't care less. And I say almost every day because lately, Lily has been showing up at 3:15 in the afternoon just 5 minutes before the school day ends. Her parents drop her off just in time for the after-school programs, which, of course, she loves. These programs are designed to be fun and engaging, so naturally, she's all about them. But what about the actual learning? She hasn't attended a single class in almost a week. She's just here for the fun stuff while the other kids are leaving for the day. It's maddening. Here's the kicker. It's clear that Lily's parents don't need a school right now. They're obviously home with her until 3 p.m. and only drop her off because they don't want to deal with her for those last couple of hours. They don't care if she's learning or falling behind, and it shows. This kid is so far behind her peers that I worry about what's going to happen when she moves on to elementary school or whatever fancy international school they have planned for her. We're in Asia, and wherever she goes next, she's going to get a rude awakening. And if they go back to their home country, I can't even imagine. The way she behaves in class now would not fly in a more rigorous school environment. The entitlement of these parents is beyond frustrating. They treat our school like a daycare, dropping Lily off whenever it's convenient for them, with no regard for the impact on her education or the rest of the class. They act like we're here to serve them, not to teach their child. It's insulting, and I'm just sick of it. If it were up to me, I'd start fining them for every time they show up later than lunch. And if that didn't work, I'd politely tell them to take Lily to an actual daycare because they're wasting our time and, more importantly, setting their daughter up for failure. Unfortunately, the school is struggling to keep enrollment up due to some staffing issues, which is a whole other story. So they can't afford to tell any family to take a hike, no matter how much they deserve it. And so, we're stuck in this absurd situation where a child who desperately needs a consistent education is being deprived of it by the very people who are supposed to care the most, her parents. In the end, it's Lily who will suffer the consequences of her parents' entitlement and neglect. And that, more than anything, is what makes this situation so heartbreaking and infuriating. Story 3. My wife, 31, and I, 33, like many other Americans, have been burdened by the relentless grip of the for-profit medical insurance industry. In September 2021, my wife gave birth to our precious first daughter, and since then, we've been navigating the complexities of healthcare, including an unexpected trip to the emergency room. Recently, we received the bill for the labor and delivery L&D at the hospital, and it left us astounded. The charges for a straightforward delivery with an epidural amounted to over $20,000. While our insurance coverage did alleviate a significant portion of the bill, we were still left with a remaining balance of over $2,000. As a teacher and a state government worker, our income falls somewhere in the middle, not too low, but far from high. Bearing an additional $2,000 in out-of-pocket expenses would undoubtedly plunge us into substantial debt. At first, the hospital showed some patience in the payment process, but that attitude soon changed. I took it upon myself to negotiate with the hospital, aiming to reach a fair and reasonable amount to settle the account. However, despite my efforts, the hospital insisted on receiving nearly half of the outstanding balance before closing the account. I proposed a more modest payment that we could manage, knowing that they were unlikely to accept it. Regrettably, I had to resign myself to another automated debit from our bank account. It was disheartening to realize that our offer would be rejected. But what made matters worse was the behavior of the account representative during our phone conversation. Throughout the call, the account representative continuously interrupted me and displayed an outrageously rude demeanor. I understand that we have a debt to settle, and I am not attempting to evade our responsibility. However, it was profoundly disheartening to be treated with such disrespect merely because we found ourselves ensnared in a flawed system that charged my wife exorbitant prices, such as $50 for a single Advil. The call with the account representative reached a new low when they sarcastically suggested I explore the financial assistance program available. Refusing to be deterred, I decided to follow their suggestion and contacted the customer service line for the financial assistance program. To my surprise, within a mere 10 minutes, I received confirmation that the entire outstanding amount would be forgiven. It turns out that if your income falls below 300% of the federal poverty rate, many non-profit hospitals offer forgiveness programs. The same account representative who had attempted to shame me into paying an exorbitant sum for services rendered was now left with nothing. This experience has taught me a valuable lesson: do not blindly accept the exorbitant medical bills that arrive at your doorstep. Instead, fight tooth and nail to bring them down to a more reasonable level. Seek every avenue available, including financial assistance programs, to ensure that you are not subjected to unfair treatment and financial strain. Healthcare should be about compassion and healing, not about exploiting families with excessive charges. Story 4. I'm a senior at a large state university. This happened in the first semester of my freshman year. I was selected for an honors-type program that placed me in a co-ed dorm building with every other student in the program. As a dumb freshman, I rushed into a relationship with a freshman girl who lived right above me. We'll call her Megan. It was convenient for me to date someone who lived so close, but everyone else in our building hated Megan because she talked a lot, and almost exclusively about herself. She bragged often about being a fairly aggressive person, but somehow I overlooked that mile-wide red flag. Right after Thanksgiving break, at the end of an evening class, I got a call from my mom, who noticed some unusual activity on my checking account. Back then I had no credit card, so this account-debit card was my only access to my savings while I lived on campus. I rarely needed to buy anything during the semester, so I was puzzled to find that $104.29 had left my bank account over 2 weeks, in the form of 6 Grubhub food orders. At this point, I trusted Megan, but I decided to ask her about the money right away. She denied any involvement and suggested that I cancel my debit card. After a really long phone call to the bank, I did just that. Next, I reached out to Grubhub customer service on Twitter. Hey, my card was stolen and used for food orders on these dates. Can I have the receipts? They sent me the first and last receipts, but they had to redact the personal info of the account holder. I say redact in quotes because they just used the Snapchat draw tool, and Megan's name was still clearly visible on both receipts. What's more, the most recent receipt was only 2 hours old. She was probably still eating when I chopped up my debit card. It's worth noting that she and I both had unlimited dining plans, paid for by our respective parents, and we lived 500 feet from the nearest dining hall. She didn't need to order food, and she definitely didn't need my money to do it. So I texted her again. I have the receipts from Grubhub. Are you sure you didn't make those orders? Her reply, screw you for suspecting me. Fairly aggressive, wouldn't you say? I hatched a plan to collect security camera footage of her picking up the order from that evening. However, by midnight, Megan arrived at my door in tears and confessed to everything. Plus, she admitted to being a serial shoplifter. Exhausted, I sent her away and decided to deal with everything in the morning. By the next day, everyone in our building seemed to know what was going down, probably because Megan had already begun broadcasting her version of the story. I sent Megan a breakup text and decided that the $104.29 was a loss. At least I escaped unscathed, right? Well, less than 2 days later, she entered my room when I wasn't looking. I was sitting at my desk when I noticed her standing silently behind me. "Give me my stuff." "Where's my stuff?" I asked. "What stuff?" "You know." I did not know. She tore through the room, looking for something that she refused to identify. Just as quick as she came, she was gone, and I locked the door because obviously this wasn't over yet. Within a minute, she was back. She stood outside my door, knocking and demanding I let her back inside. The knocking quickly got more violent. She started shouting, "I know you're in there," and "Open the door. Mind that we lived in this building with students in our program who all know each other," and all of them could hear her. Pretty quickly, Megan was rattling the handle of my door. Next, she began throwing herself at it, shoulder first, trying to break it down. I lived next door to my Roths, but judging by the lack of any intervention, he was elsewhere. So I whipped out my phone and texted him to send backup. Meanwhile, I saw my heavy wooden door bending and buckling. I even heard it crack a bit. My Ra was on duty in another building, so he sent 3 of his colleagues to de-escalate the situation. They brought Megan downstairs, where she revealed that the stuff she wanted was just the t-shirt and keychain that she gave me for my birthday. Whatever, I let her have those. I still just wanted this to be over. However, once I shared my story with the resident life staff, they filed university paperwork to place a no-contact order between me and Megan. They also recommended I contact the campus police, who then told me I should get my stolen money back in small claims court. I couldn't even get there without a car or money to pay for an Uber. At the request of the campus police, I also contacted the Title Roman IX office at my school, sending them the story of everything you've read so far. They were interested, to say the least, although I didn't want any trouble. I just wanted a clean breakup and a fresh start. But a Title Roman IX representative informed me that they were bringing 3 misconduct charges against Megan: theft, threatening violent behavior, and inciting an intervention by university staff. The representative asked me to serve as a witness in Megan's disciplinary hearing the next semester. I tentatively agreed, right before the representative set the hearing date for February 14th. Valentine's Day. I thought it was a joke, but they really did that. When the day of the hearing finally arrived, the no-contact order was still in effect, but a few of my friends had kept tabs on Megan. For starters, she failed all of her classes in the fall. Even worse, Megan kept telling a twisted version of the whole story to try and turn my friends against me. So when I found out that she had found a new boyfriend, it felt good to know that the V-Day disciplinary hearing ruined whatever evening plans they might have made. I arrived alone at the disciplinary board office, unsure what to expect. The board consisted of grad students, and the hearing was expected to run into the night. Unlike me, Megan did not come alone. She brought both of her parents as character witnesses. That wasn't even a thing here. This wasn't a real courtroom, as you'll soon see. And that's not all. Megan's parents also paid a lawyer to defend her against the charges. The board knew that was unnecessary. In the name of fairness, the board members offered me pro bono legal representation, a junior economics major, who we'll call Jimmy. Jimmy had already read my account of the events from the fall, and thanks to my screenshots of Grubhub receipts, he said there was an okay shot of the charges sticking. Then I told him something I'd kept secret for months, when Megan tried to break down my door and I whipped out my phone to text my Ra. I also filmed the whole thing. Jimmy couldn't get enough of the video. There was Megan, kicking and screaming and clearly trying to break into my dorm room. It was all the evidence I needed, and no one saw it coming. In the hearing, when the time came for me to make the case against Megan, Jimmy played the video on a big screen in front of everyone. The room went insane. In that instant, I realized that Megan really had convinced everyone I was the liar. In her version of the story, I gave her permission to buy food using my account. She told her parents that she'd asked me politely for her belongings, which I'd rudely hidden from her in my dorm room. In Megan's story, I was the sociopath trying to ruin her reputation. Before I unveiled the video, it was her word against mine. I still didn't want revenge, even after finding out that Megan tried to cheat on me. But when I saw her parents flipping out at the video, "Why didn't you tell us you did this?" and her lawyer raising hell. This evidence was not provided in pre-trial disclosure, and a board member standing over him. "Sir, this is not a court of law. Please return to your seat," and him shouting, "Objection," and her replying, "We don't have objections. This isn't a court of law," and Jimmy, my new best friend, just trying not to laugh out loud. That's when I realized how good revenge can feel when it's fair and deserved. The board found Megan responsible for all 3 charges. My side of the bench recommended the university terminate her housing contract and force her to pay restitution. Her side recommended only restitution and a reprimand. The board compromised. Her family paid back the money she stole, and Megan was forced to move into a different dorm building. This probably would have helped her anyway because every student in our program's building knew everything she'd done and lied about. They wouldn't speak to her, and no one wanted to be her roommate. By the time she had to move buildings, she'd already failed all of her courses again. Having paid for her tuition, her unused dining plan, her lawyer, and her restitution, Megan's parents finally pulled her out of school after losing all this money. Last I heard, Megan returned as a part-time student, but I never saw her again because the no-contact order still stands. Story 5. English is my second language, and I live in Europe, so there might be some unusual expressions or differences in the way things are done here. I gave birth 2 months ago, so my memory might not be entirely accurate. Let me give you some background. I've been friends with this couple, a man N and a woman D, for about 9 years. I first got to know her, and not long after, I was introduced to him as D's new boyfriend. N has an open-hearted, welcoming nature, and both of them are more than 10 years older than me. About 4 years ago, I moved away but recently returned to town, happy and pregnant. I wanted to be closer to friends and family because I was going to be a single mother by choice through insemination. While I was away, I often visited them. But gradually, N became my primary friend, as D got more absorbed in her own world, barely acknowledging me when I visited. She does have some diagnoses, but that doesn't excuse all of her behavior. Essentially, D changed for the worse, and they broke up before I moved back home. N, with his big heart, still tries to ensure that D is doing okay. He brings her food, takes her to the doctor, and tries to maintain a reasonably good relationship with her since they live in the same town. Things were going well for me. Time passed, and I counted down the days until I could meet my baby. My pregnancy was great, with no major issues until the very end. Something happened, and I needed to stay a little longer in the hospital than planned. After giving birth, friends and family came to visit. Before N visited, he asked if I needed anything, and I said yes, asking for shampoo and some fruit. It was a very normal visit. He came, greeted me, held my baby girl, we talked, and then he went home. D, however, didn't like that. She has severe mood swings, tries to be controlling, and often yells both in writing and face-to-face at N, accusing him of playing family with me and calling him unpleasant names. All this just because he bought a few things for me, and perhaps also because of the visit. N told me about this, keeping me updated since it involved me, and he felt the need to share it. It's hard on him. He's just trying to do his best. I think it was the next day or the day after that when N asked if it was okay for both him and D to visit me. I said something like, if she wants to, she can come. Everyone who wants to meet my baby girl should get the chance. They came a few days later, and it was awkward. D was overly cheerful, greeting me, hugging me, and suggesting that we should find a date to go out for sushi, among other things. She didn't even look at my daughter. N drove D home afterward, and apparently, she had a huge meltdown yelling, screaming, and lashing out at N for helping me and not including her. The problem was that N asked if he should help return a baby car seat, but he didn't say they should help. In short, she couldn't handle the whole situation. I eventually got home and started planning a small get-together for my baby girl with friends and family. I didn't directly invite D because both N and I feared she might cause a scene. D has done that often in the past, and it would have been N's responsibility to keep her calm. Nevertheless, they both came. D was very clingy with N, overly joyful, and again brought up the sushi date. She seemed completely disconnected from the context of the day. One of my other friends even asked me if they were back together. Over the last couple of months since my daughter's birth, I've only heard from D once. But she still gets angry at N for being a supportive friend. She has demanded that he isn't allowed to see me and continues to use the family card, the helping card, and the no contact card against him, insisting that he should not help me or even see me. One time, N even took an alternate route home. When he picked me up normally, I would walk, but he was already out driving, and we were going to have a friendly dinner because he didn't want to risk her seeing me in the car. When N takes pictures of food or wine, he makes sure I'm not in the photos, and so on. I know what you might be thinking now, that I'm the inconsiderate one and that she has every right to be angry. But there's something I haven't told you yet, a crucial detail that changes everything. My baby died at 40 weeks, and she became a perfect stillborn angel. The get-together was her funeral. I don't blame any of my friends who didn't visit me at the hospital because it's incredibly difficult to see a deceased baby. Story 6. After several attempts to reason with my parents, I finally decided to escape from home. We even tried counseling with several professionals, but it was all to no avail. My parents tried everything they could to convince me to come back, but it wasn't what I wanted. I knew they would still monitor and control me, and at 26 years old, I had had enough. It's been a roller coaster, to say the least, and I just can't deal with it anymore. My parents, their community, and everything in between. I'm even tired of having no money due to the constant professional sessions. Don't get me wrong, the sessions have worked, but they are expensive. I started dating someone, and yes, we went for walks, dinner, and movies. However, I became so paranoid every time we went out that I eventually told my parents. Many people had seen us together, not doing anything compromising, but I come from a very judgmental and close-minded community, so I knew word would get around quickly. I had been so stressed about the entire situation, and I hadn't gotten a break for over 4 months after leaving. I wasn't even leaving my apartment because I kept worrying about what people would say. The stress from leaving home and being harassed was overwhelming. My boyfriend invited me to his house at the beach, and I said yes. I went 2 weekends in a row. I've made so many mistakes, and I feel deeply ashamed of the things I did when I was younger, sneaking out because I wasn't allowed to stay out, going to parties, drinking, and the like. But I've left that life behind. I'm not one to upload pictures of myself. If my dad saw a picture of me he didn't like or didn't approve of, he would call or text me, telling me to take it down. Mind you, it was never a revealing picture, and I wasn't allowed to wear revealing clothes anyway. However, one of my boyfriend's family members uploaded pictures of us. In one, I was wearing a bikini, and I had my arm around him. He didn't reciprocate, though. The other pictures were of us in the kitchen, cooking together. Someone sent these pictures to my dad. He came to my apartment to discuss the situation. He doesn't agree with what I've been doing, but he's willing to forget about the past as long as I follow their demands. He says he doesn't want to control me. Funny, right? His demands include not going out with mixed gender groups, not going out alone with a man, not going on trips, and not wearing certain types of clothes. He also mentioned someone from the community who is interested in me. My dad claims that he agreed to let me live alone, but that's not true. I escaped because they wouldn't let me, and I'm financially taking care of myself. He told me he has limits, and he won't accept this type of behavior. He doesn't respect me and questions if these are the types of friendships I want in my life. Honestly, I love wearing clothes that show some skin, and I told my dad that I wear those clothes for myself, not for anyone else. I've always wanted to dress this way, and it may seem trivial, but I was never allowed to before. I'm a very skinny girl, so I've always felt that these clothes don't look vulgar on me. My dad, however, told me that's not what our faith teaches, and that it does look vulgar. He said if I like to wear these types of clothes, I need to look inside and assess myself. He went on to say that if a guy from our community, or in general, sees that image of me in a bikini, They won't think, "Oh, she's smart." Instead, they'll think, "Oh, she's so attractive." He asked me if I really think I can only offer that when I'm so intelligent. My dad also said that the guy I'm dating is a coward. He asked him not to tell me something because I was confused. But my boyfriend did tell me. My dad also said my boyfriend hasn't respected me. He said that if I wanted to marry someone who has converted to our religion, he's not against it. But I need to come back home for at least 3 months while the conversion process takes place, and then we can get married. However, he warned me that our relationship will change, and it will never be the same. He said we'll need to figure out the financial aspect of it, too. But he will be very disappointed. He asked if that's really the lifestyle I want for myself. He told me to let him know what I want, because if this is what I want, then he has reached his limit. My parents think I'm selfish and only think of myself and no one else. Finally, he told me to talk to my therapist and let her know everything. He believes I only tell her my version of events and that I should tell her the whole truth. Then, he wants me to tell him what she said to see if she agrees with him. I am so tired of feeling like a bad person, of feeling so ashamed, and of feeling like I'm not good enough. They make me feel like I can't make my own decisions, and I realize my dad is the reason for my low self-esteem. I'm tired of feeling like I have to be this perfect being because, otherwise, I'm not cut out for anything in life, especially marriage. I can't take it anymore. I can't take them anymore.